Hello, my name is Tetzlaff. I have been asked by Columbia Holdings to take a look at a proposal regarding possible outsourcing of the production of the gudgeon EH40 that is currently being manufactured by Patterson Manufacturing. Just a brief history of Patterson Manufacturing. It was started a few generations ago by Wesley Patterson and has been handed down over a series of generations to Jessica Patterson, who has recently retired. Jessica, leaving no heir, sold the company to Columbia Holdings, who installed a new CEO. That CEO was able to control costs and increase growth in the company. Patterson Manufacturing stands as a pillar in the community and has invested quite a bit into the town, from municipal buildings to a hospital to different parks and those things like that. Patterson Manufacturing currently produces the gudgeon EH40, which accounts for 30% of the company's sales and approximately 25% of the cost of goods sold. The gudgeon is being proposed to be produced overseas to an outsourced supplier. Also with that proposal is a 5% reduction in price and a 15% increase in sales volume. Using last year's numbers, year 5, as a jumping off point, the new projections bring sales revenue to $29.5 million, whether the product is produced locally or overseas. If produced overseas, materials and labor costs increase to that variable 15%, while other figures remain constant. Also, the overseas supplier will be adding a 10% markup, which brings the product cost to almost $23 million. Regardless of the proposal, sales commissions at 8% will be at about $2.3 million. If Patterson chooses to move forward with the outsourcing, there will be a new construction of a shipping and receiving building in the first year, with a cost of $200,000. Also in the first year, the company will be paying out $1 million in a severance package. After year 1, however, this $1.2 million is put back into the profit. Another additional cost is the transportation cost, which is, according to the year 5 numbers, about $600,000. If you add the 15% markup in sales volume, that will be variable, and that will place the new figure at about $690,000. There was some consideration to continue to produce the gudgeon locally. However, with the 5% decrease in price and 15% increase in sales revenue, labor costs would jump up to $6.4 million, and the company would actually be taking a loss of over $350,000, which is something that the company just cannot absorb. Therefore, it has been determined to accept the proposal to move production of the gudgeon EH40 to an overseas supplier. Now, as with any outsourcing of production, we can expect some pushback because we will be laying off nearly a third of the workforce. However, it's important to communicate to the community in which Patterson resides and to the workforce that the latest 5-year trend shows a steadily dwindling revenue stream, net income and return on asset percentages. The average decline in revenue over the last 5 years has been over $5 million per year, and over the last 5 years, the average loss of net income has been approximately $1.1 million. Jessica Patterson, like the rest of her family, were very customer-oriented, but they didn't really look into what production was costing them. If the last 5 years were any indication of how the company was going to go, Patterson Manufacturing was several years away from actually losing money and being put in a position of having to cut even more than those that we're laying off right now. So in order to stop the bleed, Columbia Holdings is looking to provide this stopgap measure of outsourcing production of the gudgeon by severing a $5.6 million labor cost. This measure, while it is drastic, it does provide the town with the advantage of keeping the company in place instead of complete divestiture of Patterson Manufacturing from Columbia Holdings. Now, there are some inherent risks with moving production overseas. Such a supplier needs to be thoroughly vetted for the quality of the product. Columbia will be required to send a representative to the manufacturing location to establish how it's going to be produced. The supplier's sources of direct materials need to be examined to ensure their quality as well. These sources of direct materials need to be examined to ensure quality as well. These examinations will need to consist of ongoing audits throughout the contracted service, not just a one-time setup and then we can leave. This will have to be a regular examination, a regular audit of how these materials are going to be made and how the overall product is going to be assembled. This will require Columbia Holdings to regularly send a representative to the supplier to ensure quality and maintain relations. Wesley Patterson and his family went to great lengths to build a reputable name, and Columbia Holdings should not be in a position to diminish that. Other assets that we need to protect include the intellectual property that's being used. While maintaining a patent is simple in our community, it's almost impossible to protect overseas, and the gudgeon would stand vulnerable to reverse engineering and will likely result in imposters being cheaply made. Any new technological advancements of the product may benefit from being installed once it's received back home. Quality manufacturing is key to ensure Columbia Holdings is paying for overseas assembly only once. We need to protect against warranty callouts as well. Credentials of the specialized labor overseas should be thoroughly vetted. Columbia Holdings must ensure that the supplier and each entity in the supply chain carries out ethical business practices. These practices include everything from the treatment of its labor force to ethical sourcing of its materials. The infrastructure between the manufacturer and the supplier and the point of departure must be sound in order to mitigate any delays. If the manufacturer is in an area of political, economic, or social unrest, the company's products may be blocked, damaged, or stolen. Also, if the raw materials are in areas of unrest, the supplier may need to find alternative means of acquiring those materials in order to prevent delay of manufacturing and shipping. And the new manufacturing and shipping times will require a new calculation of lead times, delivery periods, and installation estimates. And these new calculations must be communicated to the customers of Patterson Manufacturing. And the company must be prepared to make the customer whole in case any guarantee of delivery or service cannot be honored. Our biggest risk of the outsourcing of production involves the pushback from the community and the employees once the company lays off nearly a third of its workforce. Columbia can expect to receive bad publicity, protests, negative treatment by other members of the community, job actions such as strikes and walkouts, potential vandalism, and even perhaps litigation if collective bargaining agreements are violated. These risks can be mitigated by notifying a workforce recruiter of short-term labor needs in case such a job action takes place. A public relations response should be immediately drafted if this proposal is accepted. Furthermore, Columbia Holdings should consider reinvesting in the community to maintain positive relations. Poor publicity, not properly mitigated, stands to suppress any increase in sales the company may otherwise enjoy. While looking at this analysis, consideration was given to alternatives in reduction of costs, such as a reduction in sales commission, but that option would damage sales and prove to be counterproductive, as well as a reduction in production salaries where we would have an exodus of staff. The company could and should continue to support those staff displaced by this decision, and the staff should receive first right of refusal for any positions open up due to expansion, retirements, etc. And it should be noted that these positions will likely be created to liaison with overseas suppliers, and consideration should be given to those displaced staff as well. I hope this answers some of the questions. Once again, I recommend the proposal to be accepted, and I thank you for your time.